an intensive care unit of a hospital chain be inspired by a Formula One pitch track? You are watching Culture Crave by the Culture Wire. Hi, I'm Aparajita, the founder of the Culture Wire.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Jeffries, the founder of Austin Found and an advisor and co-founder of the Culture Wire.
Awesome, Dwayne. So today we're going to talk about where to look when you're stuck. We're about to share a secret sauce to seeking inspiration in unexpected places whenever you're having a challenge, right? You're going to discover this with a trend jam between me and Dwayne. We're going to do some storytelling and it's going to be a lot of fun. So hang tight.
All right. Well, I'm super excited to dive in and look to see kind of where we're going. There's a ton of stuff that we can dive into. I love the idea of the Formula One concept, and I know you've mentioned it before. So you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Okay, I'm going to start with an incredible story. It goes back in the 90s, because who doesn't love the 90s, right?
I love the 90s. We could really go
awesome.
off the rails on a crazy train talking about the 90s. That was my day back in the day. But tell me more about this Formula One concept.
So even though Formula One has consumed more lives than it has ever saved since its inception in the 1950s, this hospital from Bristol in England found a way to cut down the mistakes that were caused during handoff of patients from surgical unit to the intensive care through Formula One, right?
How were they able? They were able to maximize the time inside of the ER and intensive care.
So this hospital named Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children, they were treating about 100,000 kids per year who suffer from heart diseases and multiple other diseases, right? And in the mid-1900s, this hospital saw a very, very high rate of mortality, even though like hospital industry sees a very high mortality rate, but this was like more than the usual average rate of mortality. And after subsequent studies, it was found out that the handover of patients from surgical unit to the ICU was at high risk. So essentially, it was the time lag, right? When you transfer one person from a surgery to the ICU, this is the period where the risk is the highest, and we were not able to sort of find a solution for that. So two doctors, Dr. Goldman and Martin Elliott, they were having a really bad day, okay? And they were just watching TV. Like, that's what they were doing. They were big motorsport fans and they found striking similarities between a Ferrari pit crew and the handover procedures in the hospital, right? Who would think like there can be any similarities between these two things, right?
Does that mean there needs to be efficiency? Like, is that the idea? Is that the similarity is that speed and precision is the X factor?
Well, although the handover procedure cannot be rushed like the pit crew, right? It's sort of if I have to break it down, right? Let me try and create two scenarios: how it works in the at the racetrack and how it works in a surgery room, right? Maybe then we can try and see some analogies here. So the lollipop man ushers the car into a halt, right? And the crew changes the tires, replaces the damaged parts, and clears the air vents in a staggering 4 to 7 seconds, right? And the car is good to go back onto the track, right? And in case of a surgery, right, in the hospital, a patient comes in, he's operated on by the group of surgeons and nurses, and then he is handed over to the ICU. This comparison of pit crew to the doctor's team was all similar, sort of, right? But, I mean, the work done by a doctor's team was downright shabby. Not to be rude, but it wasn't.
Meaning like, I'm bringing my patient, I've done my job, now you do yours, kind of like not taking ownership of the exchange or
the collaboration, the passion, the spirit, right? The team spirit, I believe sort of that was missing. I mean, if you look at the two images over here, you'll see how strikingly similar the two setups look.
So it's
The
almost
race
like
car.
this, the transition or the handoff is where the high probability of risk is encased. I mean, like when I think of Formula One, it's similar to running a relay race, right? In the Olympics, right? It's the handoff. If you miss the handoff, you've seen those people that are like blasting through, it's all primed and staged, and then they reach back. And if the previous runner can't put the baton into the hand at the proper time, if you lose time, you lose the race. And in this case, if you lose time in Formula One, you lose the race. If you lose time in the exchange between a doctor and the ICU, you lose the race of life, which is kind of a bad scenario.
Interestingly, you could potentially lose life in both cases, right?
Right.
If you think about it. I mean, if the pit crew messes up in that 4 to 7 seconds, basically the life of the driver is at threat.
Is it one of these like, excuse me, guys, where does this go?
Yeah. Well, guess what happened next?
What happened?
So the hospital team, they invited the British driving team to give them insights into the pit stop maneuvers, right? And the team brought in slides and videos, and they got to jam with the hospital surgeons and really guide them how their team dynamic works and how really they're able to reduce the time of the entire process, even though it's so complex, and how they can apply the same techniques and same processes and same learnings into a hospital setup. And that was incredible. The results that came in were just mind-blowing. So, yeah.
It's interesting. Cool. It's interesting that you say that. And then basically, I guess the results that we're talking about is lives were saved. Races were won.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's so ironic how it's a patient is called a patient when he's the most impatient one in a hospital setup, right?
Right.
And it is such an irony. Like, how can a patient be patient when in India, a patient's waiting time from the registration to surgery itself is about, on an average, an hour and a half, or maybe 2 hours. On an average, we have to wait for at least 40 minutes for a receptionist to attend us, right? And for us to get into our doctor's appointment. I mean, there's so much that can be fixed by just getting inspired from something that we were not expecting it to come from at all.
It's like, excuse me, doctor, can you help me? I need to get a surgeon immediately.
No, you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait. You'll have to wait. Yeah, well, it's pretty cool.
That's interesting. One thing that I like about this example is what we can really glean from looking at a completely separate industry and how the processes in that industry could help us innovate in our industry. And we talk of, industry, but we could also talk about it on a product by product basis, right? Maybe there's a product a perfect example would be the big macro would be, say, the share economy, right? What could Airbnb learn from Uber? Or they all are still in the share economy, but they're selling different things for the most part. Uber, transportation and efficient transportation, Airbnb, efficient travel,
That's so true. I also always believe, since we're talking about inspiration here, I always believe that innovation as a word is so overrated. When we say innovation, we're not asking you to create something from scratch, and it has to be really high-tech, innovative, only tech-related stuff, right? You're supposed to solve a real problem, bring change, get inspired by something that has already existed, bring it back, make your own version, or even if it's something brand new, right? There are various ways you can apply innovation to.
Cool, awesome example. And I saw this the other day and I'm like, wow. And I think that it wasn't a TikTok video, but it basically could have been. And it was talking about how innovation doesn't have to have a budget. It just has to have an idea that moves to execution. Here's the thing. There's lots of people out there. There's lots of companies, big and small, that have great ideas. But ideas without action do nothing. They change zero lives. You have to bring that thing, that idea to life. You've got to give it breath. So I was watching this video, super cool. It's I guess you could call him an inventor. You know, he's overseas and he's in a wheelchair, and he took, it's like you know, a gyro, you know, like those gyros that you ride on with the single wheel, and they're always kind of upright. Okay. He took kind of an upright gyro, and you roll up and in a wheelchair, and you click. It's literally, it's so simple. It's using leverage. It has a little foot on it, and you ride up on your wheelchair and you push forward, and it lifts the front of the wheels of the wheelchair up. And then there's a steering mechanism here with the power. And now you can drive around with just the front driver of like the gyro or the scooter. It's just the front piece.
Wow.
And
use
a foot to lift up the front of the wheelchair, and now you've got people in wheelchairs that can enjoy, you know, these scooters that we see everywhere. It was an amazing.
Cool.
It's nothing, right? It costs nothing probably to do that. It's some guy tinkering in his garage, and he comes up with this idea, and now he's renting these gyro scooters to people in wheelchairs. Well, that's making a difference, right? That's thinking outside the box. That's solving your own
innovation,
your solution. So I'm sorry, I get so excited about this.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point. I'm sure every single person watching this feels the same way. And I mean, this has been so wonderful. This has been so good. All right, guys. So if you really enjoyed today's session and our culture jam, and you're craving for culture, for daily dose of trends, insights, and inspiration, visit theculturewire.com and subscribe today. Also, hit us up, me or Dwayne. You have our links in the description right now, and write to us if you have any questions or ideas you would like to jam with us on, and let's do it. Yeah, let's keep the creative juices flowing.
Absolutely.